Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our class on B2B marketing. So this is going to be a really interesting class because I'm really bringing in the key takeaways of marketing communication in 2026. We're going to be talking about really the essential framework for communicating value in a B2B environment. So why don't we start off by imagining this? Two companies sell the exact same product, same quality, same price, same delivery system. One wins 80% of the market, the other struggles to survive. Why? Well, it's not the product, and surprisingly, it's not the price. It's not even the sales team. It's how they communicate value, concept we've come back on fairly often in our class. So in B2C, so something that we're more familiar with in our everyday lives, marketing communication is about attention. So clicks, views, likes. In B2B, well, it's about convincing an entire organization to trust you with a decision that could cost millions and their job, of course, if they're wrong. So when a company buys in B2B, you're not selling to one person. You're selling to the chief financial officer who sees risk, the technical team who sees flaws, the procurement, who wants the lowest price, senior management who wants a strategic fit, and end users who just want the thing to work. And they all speak different languages just to make things a little bit more interesting. So B2B marketing is not about saying more. It's about saying this right thing to the right stakeholders and at the right moment in the buying process. So what we're going to be looking at in this chapter is who are you really communicating with in B2B? And a hint to all of you, it's not just one person. And what kind of message actually creates trust and reduces risk? And which channels and tools work in a world where decisions take months, not seconds? Because in B2B, you don't win people who are impressed. You win people who feel confident enough to say, let's move forward. And in that vein, so why don't we move forward? And I'm going to share the screen for our PowerPoints. Let me just jump into it right now. And so here we go. Okay, so in today's class, we are going to concentrate on basically four big key takeaways. We're first going to look at the disruptive forces that are taking place in B2B marketing and have been taking place over the last few years, many of which we've already mentioned in product development, in our challenges with pricing, and other elements in the marketing mix. We're going to compare multi-channel and omni-channel communication. Now, we've looked at this when we've talked about creating channels, but now we're going to look at it from a marketing communication standpoint. We are, of course, going to describe the communication funnel, something that you're well aware of from your basic marketing class, but we're going to spin this thing onto its head in a B2B context. And we're going to look at some of the tactical measures that we can take, and I've got plenty of examples to illustrate those issues. And of course, we're going to look at account-based marketing. So a different approach to marketing communication, and one that we took a look at when we spoke about segmentation, and now we're going to jump into it with marketing. So, of course, as a reminder, you'll remember that when we look at marketing communication, we can't forget that inside every B2B marketer, there is a B2C customer. And so the customer journey, while different and distinctive in B2B, does have to resonate with some of the habits that these people who during the weekend will, of course, purchase products in a B2C context, and on Monday morning don't change their habits completely overnight. Okay, so we're going to see some distinctions there, but clearly, strong migration towards digital platforms, okay, and a way of absorbing information and making decisions, okay? So let's take a look at, first off, some of the big disruptive forces in marketing communication. So what you'll see at the left part of your screen, going down over the next two PowerPoints, is simply the decision-making process from problem identification, research, looking at comparing products, and so on until people actually buy the product. The disruptive forces are those that have taken place over the last few years and require for companies to adapt their strategies and tactics so that they are at the right place for the right people with the right information. So one of the disruptive forces is handed to us right off the bat in the problem identification, in that there is a tremendous amount of channels in which clients can now turn to and do turn to on a regular basis to identify problems that they might have either now or in the future, and that require for us to be present in a multitude of different media channels. This research, of course, is now anchored mostly in digital sources, although that is not the only case. We obviously have conferences and all sorts of ways to engage with customers. But we already know that 70% of that decision is made even before we have a chance to speak to our clients. Okay, so we have to provide an environment in which, and as you can see on the right side of the PowerPoint here, for clients to interact with their company, with our products, to customize them, all without speaking to us. And the more they'll be able to do that, the more they will feel, of course, that here's a company that understands that things have to operate in a transparent and very fast way, and more likely that they'll deal with you down the line. When we consider and evaluate options, we also, in this measure of transparency, of course, have to provide our clients different options. Those options might be some of the different pricing points that we might have for different products. It might extend to comparing ourselves to our competitors. So the more you're open with this, of course, the riskier it is in one sense by publishing this information online. But the more your client might be impressed that you're doing that, and that might be in great defense of a competitive advantage that you feel that you have, okay? Which is the reason you can be so open about it. Formal requests, of course, have now been streamlined, okay, for these, what we call these formal request proposals. And what we find, of course, is that when people are buying, multiple decision makers are at play. So this buying group that we mentioned in several PowerPoints and several chapters before, is going to require us to customize this marketing communication to each one of those stakeholders. What we'll see is that clients will also expect us not to work in silos the way we've been doing for many years, where we're going to look at this coordination between what the marketing people are providing online and the salespeople are actually saying, but also how the service people are coming in support to the product people in the sense that, of course, the services oftentimes will support and back up the products. And of course, before we have a chance to renew contracts, we're going to have to speak to the people who actually provided the services in our companies to be more aware of any challenges that our clients have faced. So all of this information has to flow from one function of the company to another and cannot operate in silos. And last but not least, of course, we can't rest on our laurels. If there was a time when information was much more opaque, so much less transparent, much less visible, much more secretive, where our clients didn't really have a lot of choices, the switching costs were fairly high. As we know, switching costs now with a multitude of offers, multitude of competitors, and with clients that are much more well-informed, and with this information being provided to them online, switching costs, of course, are down, meaning that it's much easier for them to leave. So very important for us before renewing those contracts to make sure to stay in touch with those customers on a regular basis electronically, but also to measure how they've been using our services as we've discussed before, so that we don't end up with a surprise where a client felt that we sold them a service that they never had a chance to use properly. Okay, so as a reminder, let's take a look at the difference between multi-channel and omni-channel. So multi-channel is a strategy in which the company will develop channels, distribution, in this case, communication, several channels. Why? Because, of course, our clients are present on these various channels, be they various social media platforms, our online site, Amazon B2B, and so forth. The channel, the advantage of a multi-channel approach is that I can develop a specific marketing distribution strategy for that particular channel, which is not present in another, and that might satisfy some strategic reasons. And then I can do the same thing in communication. So I might have something very distinctive on this particular social media platform, and it could be radically different from another. And again, that might serve a purpose. The only challenge is that it causes confusion for the customer, and it does not provide an integrated a solution, a marketing solution where we have a measure of homogeneity or a consistency across all platforms, which is why the omni-channel, of course, has really taken a lot of place in marketing these days, and where all of these points are connected one to the other to have that consistent experience for that customer. Okay, so omni-channel is one approach that is something very important to consider, and to emphasize that point, let me provide you one example of an industrial equipment maker. So let's just say that they're selling this big machinery, and the idea for them is, of course, so what they're going to do in the first channel is they're going to be running LinkedIn ads because they know their clients are on LinkedIn. So we're going to run a lot of LinkedIn ads for awareness. The client will download this marketing communication, be it white paper or case studies. Then we'll send them an email campaigns from our customer relationship management software. And then finally, the salesperson will call in as the sequence on the bottom right testifies. All of this sounds absolutely wonderful if it were not for the fact, as you can see on the left side of your screen, that all of these three channels, be they LinkedIn or the email or the website, actually operate in silos. So the information, for instance, that I sent out through LinkedIn, that suggested that I client to download that white paper, that case study, well, that information was never passed on to the salesperson. The email messaging is inconsistent with the actual LinkedIn messaging. And finally, the website itself is not customized or personalized and adapted to that particular client, which of course is possible now. And what does this mean? You have a confused salesperson who has lost all credibility when they're reaching out for that client. So as you can see in the bottom right here, the key idea is that these channels coexist in a multi-channel communication, but they're not talking to each other, okay? And of course, it's causing lower conversion, so lower sales, lower conversion, because you have clients that feel that things have to be repeated to them and not necessarily in the right sequence with the right information. And so this frustration, of course, causes this friction and diminishes, of course, our credibility in the eyes of our customer. As opposed to an omni-channel communication in B2B, where we are in essence reproducing the same kind of domino effect. So the industrial equipment maker, once again, runs the LinkedIn ads for awareness. We're targeting those accounts who have visited our page. So that's possible through various forms like cookies or Facebook pixels or other forms of tracking methods. So now we know that they visited it. They visited the pricing page, which triggers a LinkedIn ad, but a LinkedIn ad that is customized to that client based on their research pattern. We then send out an email sequence, so not just necessarily one. So there's a way of automating your emails and spreading those to a reasonable amount so that you have that information comes out a few times, but not, of course, too much. Of course, that email sequence is customized. The content of it is customized to what the client was looking for. And all of this is communicated to the salesperson who now has a complete picture of what that client has actually been exposed to from the company. So as I mentioned here, it's not about the different channels, it's how they are coordinated amongst each other. So one conversation with the client where all of these touch points, of course, are connected, where the sales and the marketing are aligned. So the marketing people have communicated with the salespeople, telling them This is what we've produced. This is what has happened. This is what we've tried to client up to this point with. And where the salespeople give feedback to the marketing people so that the marketing people can then adjust their marketing material if, for instance, that material was maybe not pertinent to the clients, which of course the salespeople can now feed back to the marketing because they are the ones in touch with the clients. Okay, all of which reinforces your distinctive value proposition because this is a seamless experience for the client, leading, hopefully, higher deals, faster closes, of course, for the company. So as a comparison here, multi-channel versus omni-channel. Okay, so what you're seeing is that we're at multi-channel, we're using a lot of different channels, all of which is legitimate, of course, because that's where our clients are, but they're not talking to each other. Okay, so the multi-channel is present everywhere, but it has no memory. The omni-channel is connected, okay, so into this seamless conversation where they are not working in silos, where there is information flowing back and forth, very customer focused with this unified experience, where all of these touch points are connected and having one conversation across all of those platforms or channels. Now, let's move on to the decision stages for our clients, or specifically, as I mentioned here, what do we say and when do we say it? And of course, who do we say it to? Okay, let me just take a little bit of tea. So at the heart of our marketing communication, before we look at the forms or tactics that we can employ, what is it that we want to communicate in B2B? Well, we want to try to communicate value. Now, how do you define value? Well, anything that increases my revenue, decreases my cost, decreases my, of course, risk, impacts my revenue. And so this value, as you can see on the right, is very much related to price. So the more value create for me, all things being equal, the more I'm willing to pay for it, or at the very least, it diminishes my price sensibility. So why wouldn't you communicate value? And when you can't communicate value, it's like the old expression, you don't sell the steak, you sell the sizzle. So we don't sell features or characteristics, we sell benefits, we sell how we solve problems and business outcomes. As you can see over here, a very clear example of those kind of outcomes for a client. Okay, so that key takeaway is very important. Yes, you will mention the price, of course, but how is it that that value is being created? Something that you're well aware of because we've taken a look at value in use and total cost of ownership. Two key takeaways from not only this class, but for the course. It's very important to review these. Okay, so for instance, would it be possible, and let's play around with an example, which of course I'll be presenting over the next few PowerPoints, of a company selling a commercial coffee machine. Okay, something I thought I'd choose, something that's very close to your reality. Okay, now would it be possible for a company whose higher upfront cost to still snag that contract? Well, perhaps they can if that the economic benefits of that machine can be demonstrated to surpass, of course, and surpass substantially the initial investment into that product. So I'm selling, of course, value. And to understand value, you have to understand what the problems of a coffee shop owner are, okay, in terms of using that machine and its impact on serving customers, its impact on its employees, its impact on other suppliers, perhaps, that I can't order from because the machine is not working. So you really have to have an understanding of their business to fully understand what value is for them, because that's the only value that's important, okay? So here's an example. So option number A, so you have your competitor coming in, a deeply discounted price for a low-cost machine. The machine's costing $8,000. And as I mentioned here, looks like a fantastic deal, as opposed to yours, which is almost twice as much at $15,000. So on what is the argument that we might have at a $15,000 machine before the client asks us to leave, of course, is all of the benefits. So our machine, of course, has a faster service, meaning that we can serve more customers. That is value in use. Okay, so it's not just a conceptual that our clients will be happy by serving all those extra customers. That's all extra revenue that I would have never created with the lower cost machine. It's reliable, so there's near zero downtime. So if the faster service increases the revenue, the reliability decreases the number of copies that I would have lost by the machine not being operational. Consistent quality. Now, of course, I've got repeat business here, which is great. Why is it repeat business? Because people come into the shop and the store, and they know there's going to be a coffee machine operating, as opposed to a store where sometimes the machine is not operating properly, or maybe it's not delivering the right quality. And of course, easier to use. That training cost of those of these coffee machines is not incredibly expensive, but for a small business, every dollar counts. And of course, the easier it is to learn, the more likely it is your employees are going to stay. The more likely it is that you're going to have these employees they'll be happy, and they'll become good brand ambassadors. They'll be enthusiastic, as opposed to those who are frustrated and just swearing because the machine's not working and leave, which will force you to have a revolving door policy in terms of hiring employees and always having that training. So what you can see here is option A keeps going down because all of these costs are accumulating, whereas the option number B, yours, is actually increasing this value creation. And what you're finding is that option A is cheaper to buy, but option B is cheaper to run. And you actually have a split there, a difference of about $45,000 in this example. So once again, I circle back to this key takeaway, which is communication must focus on total value. We'll mention price, but it is extremely important to speak the value. And not because you are trying to, this is very important, not because you are trying to mask your price, but because this is what ultimately customers in B2B want to hear as well. They are well aware of all the problems that a solution could have. So you should not be embarrassed about having a price that is higher, so long as your value in use, or your total cost of ownership, your value in use is higher, your total cost of ownership is lower. Okay, so that's something that they want to hear. So why not tell them? Okay, so creating this effective B2B marketing plan based on what we talked about, of course, speaks to this whole question of the marketing funnel. This marketing funnel is something that you're well aware of from your basic marketing class, where we are trying to capture clients, right? And to drive them into this funnel, where at the beginning, of course, I'm targeting my target market, but fairly wide in a fairly relatively generic way. And I'm hoping to track them, to track that awareness, and then drive them lower. This is a classic one, of course, for B2C. We're going to see that this thing is flipped upside down for B2B, but fundamentally it's still for account-based marketing, excuse me, but fundamentally it's still the same. So let's take a look at what that looks like in B2B. So the very first thing, and you might have noticed this in the previous PowerPoint, is something that we call thought leadership. Now, I want to stop here for a split second, because this is another very important key concept in B2B marketing. So not just this class, but the entire course. It's not a question of exams. It's a question that when you're actually speaking to people about B2B marketing communication, thought leadership is really an anchor in the strategies that a company must employ. So what is thought leadership? Well, thought leadership is about getting out there and producing original content, expert analysis, various ways of trying to produce material that is showing clients what the future might look like. In essence, you are producing valuable insight for your customers so that they can better understand their environment. Now, ultimately, if you've done a great job of thought leadership, you will actually be perceived as an expert in the field. And this expertise is delivered by teaching, not selling. So it's very important when you're producing marketing communication content that is what we consider thought leadership. This information is out there to basically help everybody. This is you positioning yourself and telling everybody, well, this is what, as an expert, I have seen of the market, and hopefully this can help you. Okay, so it understands what the customer's problems are today and what they might be in the future. And ultimately, it influences their decision criteria. And imagine when somebody changes the decision criteria because of something that they heard from you. who are they most likely then to turn to at least consider buying from? Okay, so but we're still at the beginning of the funnel. Okay, so thought leadership, of course, goes way beyond just very simple information. Okay, so this is really credible, reliable, up-to-date insight, perspective that comes in and builds trust with companies and positions your firm as an expert. And there's a whole host of tactics one can use, whether they be industry reports or webinars, data content, or white paper, or case studies. All of these can be produced online, and truly one of the biggest benefits of using all of these tools is that even the smallest of companies can project a much larger image by producing this original content. Okay, and this is something that I like to refer to as the puffy fish syndrome, one that I might have shared with you in the past, which is, as you know, the puffy fish is a small fish that can puff itself up to a tremendous size, much larger than it really is, and therefore project an image of being much larger than it actually is. So thought leadership is very much like that. Small companies who normally would not merit this level of attention, if they can produce this original content and produce this insight by being well aware of the industry in which they operate, can be perceived as experts and suddenly have a chance where they would never have before with some clients. Okay, so thought leadership, okay, now is to shape the buyer's thinking, right? As I mentioned, with maybe integrating new criteria and of course shaping you in their minds as the credible authority even before we start talking products. So as an example for this commercial coffee machine that I mentioned, so on the left is not thought leadership. Anything that revolves around selling is absolutely not thought leadership. The idea here is to have an objective stance, maybe take a few steps back and look at this as industry problems, something that you're trying to demonstrate that you understand what they're going through. Okay, so and you have a couple of examples here on the right. And you can well imagine that clients would identify with these problems because they live through them every day. And of course, they would be much more highly likely to click through and to get that report, to send you their emails, and to start the conversation, which of course is the intent of thought leadership. Okay? So of course, content is king and queen, of course, goes without saying. And it always has been. It's true in B2C and it's true in B2B, no doubt. So two big concepts here are branded content and content marketing. So branded content is all about affinity, very emotional, narrative-driven storytelling. We're trying to build this affect, this emotional component with the client, okay, through the storytelling. Whereas branded content is really more about producing useful information, okay? Much more subtle. It's an ongoing strategy that informs clients and tries to generate leads. Okay, so if branded content influences the image of your brand, content marketing is supposed to drive conversions. Okay, so now it's important to note that. As I mentioned here, you can see it on the right, that both branded marketing and content marketing are towards the top of the funnel, the TOF. Keep in mind that in the funnel, you have three sections. The top of the funnel, which is closer to awareness. So we call that the TOF, T-O-F. You have the MOF, which is middle of the funnel, which we are looking at where people are expressing an interest and a desire, and where we are trying to convert them into an action. And then we have the bottom of the funnel where they're actually buying a product and then hopefully buying it again and then becoming brand ambassadors for us. Okay, so in any case, both of these options are more at the top of the funnel, but as I mentioned, they have distinctive roles. Okay, so branded content makes you memorable, as I mentioned here, but content marketing makes you credible. And now this is interesting because you will notice that in the case of branded content, it's very much of a content marketing, excuse me, it's create this understanding, this trust, this active learning. And you can see a distinction between B2C and B2B in the bottom right. So in B2C, we will oftentimes push branded content. Okay, we'll push this storytelling options and really try to create an emotional attachment with clients in a B2C. Okay, the way we do on a daily basis as consumers. The challenge, of course, is that B2C buyers tend to feel first and then justify their actions, right? So think about impulse purchases, for instance. Okay, so they think first and they feel later. Okay, but sorry, they feel first and then they justify. But B2B buyers think first and they feel later. That's not to say that there's no feeling involved. I'm going to see there's a little bit of both, but the reality is here is what you have to ask yourself is which one of these between branded content or content marketing is more likely to appeal to a business to business consumer. Well, to fully understand that, think about who your consumers are at this top of the funnel. Well, B2B, as I mentioned in my introduction, for them, it's all about creating value. And value is all about increasing revenue or decreasing cost or increasing efficiency, reducing risk. Does this sound like a very strong emotional component? Well, it doesn't. It's much more of a rational, approach. It's not to say that emotion is completely devoid here, or it's devoid of all emotion. Having said that, it's much more of an analytical approach. And since you have multiple stakeholders in this and you don't know necessarily what everybody's options are, content marketing usually leads first. Okay, it'll lead first because you're going to have more information that is pertinent to the customers, more analytical. And of course, then we're going to have the branded content that's going to reinforce. So as we go through the funnel. Okay, so content marketing is this educational problem solving, and the branded content is going to be the storytelling. Okay, so as I mentioned here, B2B storytelling alone is rarely enough at the awareness stage. If it's true in B2C, it's not true in B2B. So as you can see on the right, we start off with this thought leadership. This is our puffy fish. This is where we're positioning ourselves as an expert. And this is where we're producing insightful content in a very objective way that is not selling at all, but it is gaining awareness and is gaining people and is educating people towards what they should be looking for. And of course, you're the one doing the educating. So very, very likely that you'll grab that awareness. And then as they're moving through the funnel, you'll produce this content marketing with this educational, you'll gain their trust with the brand and content because of course, who are we? What are our values? And this is our team and this is how we do our things. And then as you go through the marketing funnel, you have other actions we'll take, but we're going to see them in just a little minute. Okay, so keep in mind that as I mentioned at the top of the funnel, we still have a combination of both. So content marketing and branded content, just 80% of it is most likely be content marketing. Okay, a couple of examples of this where you can give a return on investment calculator, for instance. So should I lease the machine or should I buy the machine? Well, how about having perhaps an online tool to be able to do that? Okay, to give that client an opportunity to measure that even before talking to you. Okay, or having insightful information that allows people to get practical, educational, and very specific information, and that speaks to all these questions of risk and operations and turnover, and also that speaks to, of course, different stakeholders. Now, as you move down, as I mentioned, we're going to be more into the branded content. Okay, and we're going to take a look at that in our next PowerPoint. So once again, still with this a commercial coffee machine that we are selling as a company, our objective here in branded content is to reinforce the content marketing that we had initially by focusing here on the image, the storytelling, okay, where we're going to be talking about how the company is positioning itself. And we're going to be integrating stories of clients that have used the machine and how behind every coffee owner or cafe that they own is just a wonderful machine. Okay, so to sort of give an inanimate object like our coffee machine, the human traits, personality traits of reliability, and how good looking it is, and so forth. Okay, so we really want to reinforce the content marketing through this branded content, which is going to be, we can have videos, we can have little webinars, the Barista Minute, all of these things touch to an emotional component, shape the brand's image, and are aspirational. Like, one day I'll have such a machine. It'll be fantastic. Okay? So you can see that there's a logical progression here between the content marketing, which leads first, and the branded content that reinforces. Okay, and as you move down, I reiterate, this branded content increases. And in this sentence, and in this aspect, this is why I added this in there. Well-known brands, of course, are going to have a lot of branded content. Why? Because they've already achieved the awareness. Okay, so they're really playing oftentimes in that middle of the funnel as opposed to the top of the funnel. Okay, so as I mentioned here, content marketing answers the questions. Very important, of course, but thought leadership changes the question. And so what a great place to be if you are the one changing the question. Okay, and then of course everybody follows you, which are your clients. So here's a couple of approaches, tactical approaches that we can use as we go through the funnel. So as we are in the awareness stage, we're looking to increase visibility for our solution. We have used digital platforms. We have pushed out our thought leadership, this insightful information. We are building awareness through this thought leadership and content marketing. We're publishing white papers or blog posts, and case studies. And what you'll find at the bottom of this PowerPoint, which is interesting, is that content marketing occupies, of course, a very, very large part of this. But the higher the complexity of the problem, the more ambiguous the situation is, the more things are changing in that industry, the more thought leadership must be present in your strategy, because our clients are looking to be guided. Don't forget, as a marketing specialist, you are a specialist in that field. And who better to guide your clients than you? Okay, they are relying on you as a true partner in this experience. In this awareness stage, of course, we can diffuse ads, LinkedIn ads, for instance. Okay, so where we're talking about return on investment or reducing cost. Okay, so for instance, a manufacturing firm here runs targeted ads to operations managers in automotive industry. So we can see where we're targeting customers specifically through LinkedIn ads. We can create webinars or podcasts. For instance, as I mentioned here, an advertising agency that creates a webinar to showcase better targeting methods. What's very important here is that these webinars and podcasts, one might argue that maybe it's not the best to have them at the real top of the funnel because people are not really aware of you. So why would they think of looking at a webinar? So this is why I mentioned here that even though they are sort of mid funnel, so this is more for people who already are aware of the problem. You're looking really more at taking those folks who have an interest in a problem, want to go further, and want to participate in a webinar to fully understand that. So it won't be at the top at the awareness. It'll be somewhere between awareness and interest or consideration. Let's put it this way, okay? Which is sort of a combination of interest and desire. Okay, so just very important to, as you can see as we go through these PowerPoints, that this is the right tool, webinar, podcast, white paper, at this stage. Okay, they are not appropriate at each stage. And why? Because people won't actually turn to them. Okay, so I think that's really a very important way. Okay, here's another webinar that could be really interesting for people who have experienced data breaches, right? 5 ways to prevent data breaches. Okay, this is why also I'm saying that the webinar, with a title like this, could be interesting perhaps at the higher levels. Okay, but of course it's very contextual. So there's not one solution that fits all, but you can see a little bit where it's going to be. It's going to be more at the top of the funnel. Okay. So at the consideration stage, of course, what we are looking for here is, of course, also is to have people gain some interest and desire of our products, and oftentimes that means that they're going to start comparing. Okay, so this is people who are aware of the product, they have an interest, and now they're thinking to themselves, you know what? Let me see what they do. Okay, so they're more likely to look, and at this point, they're looking for numbers. Okay, they're looking for proof of your value proposition. And one of the best ways to do that, of course, is through testimonials. Okay, so here's a construction technology company that highlights, of course, its success by producing testimonials from clients and how they were able to reduce cost, increase revenue, and why wouldn't that client produce that, allow themselves to be quoted? After all, it makes them look good as well. Okay, so great place to put this at this stage. Less so at the top of the funnel. Okay, email marketing is fantastic at this stage. So, of course, if that client has migrated through the thought leadership, entirely possible that you've already captured their email at that point. If not, you've probably done it at the awareness stage. This would be now a great moment at this consideration stage to send them customized emails, something that's pertinent based on their behavior, as we've seen earlier in the omni-channel approach. And hopefully at this point, we're engaging with the customer. They haven't bought yet, but we are deepening our relationship with them. So great tactic there. Okay. One other way the consideration is what we call remarketing. Okay, remarketing is still works for now. So remarketing is when you can track your clients' habits across multiple platforms. So, for instance, they go onto your website. You track them with a cookie. They go onto another social media site, and there your ad will reappear. Okay, knowing because of course the media platform that you paid to actually have that ad displayed knows that of course that client has already been on your website. So let me push that company, my company, for that coffee machine in front of that client once again. So remarketing gives you a second or third chance at capturing that client's attention. Okay, somebody so to avoid losing that customer or losing that potential prospect. Of course, decision stages is where we all get paid off. Okay, and we want to make this simple. We don't want to put obstacles in this. Okay, so we of course we want what we're looking for at this decision stage. Of course, is a decision. Okay, so we're going to use techniques that give that client that little oomph to go a little bit further. What we're looking for, of course, is a commitment, sales, and this is called conversion. Okay, so we're looking to have that client convert. There's a lot of different ways, of course. We can ask for conversions, and one might argue that getting a client's email is also a conversion, which it is. But I want to illustrate conversion here as sales. So here I'm going to maybe incentivize them to say, you know what, we're going to have this great onboarding. Okay, we're providing a free trial with an onboarding, or if you sign the contract, we'll give you a complete free onboarding for you and all of your employees in the technical department. So if it's signed within the next 10 days, these are incentives that obviously intrigue a client perhaps and allows them gives them the right reason to actually commit to you. And then finally, retention stage. Retention stage is one where we're holding on to that client and we're upselling that client. Now, I'm not saying upselling in a way that, we want clients to buy. The reality is that we have complementary products and the client's problems evolve. Of course, that's just the way things are. And so we're looking at getting clients to buy complementary products, looking at other options as well, and we're looking to deepen our relationship with a client that has already bought. But keep in mind, if that client has bought, our competitors know about it as well, so they're going to be chasing that client soon enough. Okay, so, and the more I'm going to integrate with that client, the more I'm going to be integrating other solutions, the more, of course, the switching costs, of course, for that client are going to be higher. But that's only because I'm doing a great job for them. But of course, the higher the switching cost, the less likely that client is going to leave. Okay, so this retention stage, as I mentioned, can have this kind of strong onboarding. So this video kind of speaks to that. Okay, where I might have Synthesia. So Synthesia is an online platform that allows you to have like AI avatars. So this is something new for most companies, and we thinking, wow, should I try it? Should I not try it? So how am I going to get that client to convert? Right. So I might develop a specific training for that client and offer that client with video tutorials, dedicated manager to follow through on that process. What a great way after I've sold that client to maintain my relationship with that client, and especially get that client to use that software, knowing that, for instance, as a service, this is perishable after the end of the contract. So if they haven't used it, they're going to feel that they've bought a solution that made no sense. So this retention stage is not only about keeping the client happy, but it's to have that client use that solution on a regular basis and therefore ensure the loyalty of that client, both with the product or the service, and of course with you and the company. All right, to finish up our chapter today, I want to finish on something that's extremely important, which is called account-based marketing. And it really is a core knowledge in our B2B communication strategy, but also it's a core knowledge in our course. Now, you already know what account-based marketing is because we've spoken about this when we talked about segmentation. Go back on the segmentation chapter on this. And what we are basically evoking here is that rather than treat a segment as a huge market of clients, we are actually looking at a very small group of clients, even one individual client. And so what's interesting here is the funnel. So you can see the shape of the funnel goes from wide to narrow. This is a traditional funnel where we're trying to capture a lot of people. And of course, as they go through the funnel, we're going to be fewer and fewer because, of course, not everybody's going to have an interest and desire and want to buy. The account-based marketing is different. And this is where I think I mentioned it once or twice in this video, where we flipped it upside down, where we start by identifying very specific clients, high-value clients, and of course, we are trying to deepen our relationship with them. Very common in markets where you don't have a lot of companies in this particular industry. And this is, we have taken a look at the airline industry when we talked about segmentation. So account-based marketing, as I mentioned, focuses on these high-value clients, okay? Very personalized approach where we are basically targeting specific accounts, and we are very, very aware, and this is a very important part, where we are aware of the buying center. We understand that there's multitude of buyers that are going to influence that decision. So we're going to be in touch with them. And I'm going to show you that in a second. So we're going to have messages that are tailored based on who I'm speaking to. And for sure, we need this alignment between the marketing and sales that we've spoken about. Going to be very, very important. They have to work hand in hand in this approach. So, excuse me. So as I mentioned here, the funnel is inverted, right? So it doesn't go from large to narrow, it goes from narrow to large, okay? And so you can see at the left-hand side, the traditional funnel, got a lot of leads, very generic message going in there. Whereas the ABM, okay, the account-based marketing, marketing approach, excuse me, we start off by identifying those a very few high-value clients, and then we customize our approach as we go through there, okay? If we've done it well, if we do it well, and we're going to see this in the next 2 or 3 PowerPoints, the key takeaway here is we have a higher conversion rate, okay? Because we have a much better understanding of that client, and we have higher deal sizes, of course, because these are, of course, bigger clients already to start off with. So let's take a look at what this inverted funnel looks like. So as you can see, it's narrow on the top and very large at the bottom. So we identify high-value clients. Once we are in there, we expand with the additional stakeholders. We engage, of course, with all of these stakeholders with a distinctive marketing communication approach. And then hopefully we turn them into brand ambassadors within the company. So let's take a step-by-step approach in our last few PowerPoints of this chapter. So here's a real-world example for a company called HubSpot, which I suggest all of you visit their website. Tremendous company. So they target small and medium-sized companies, specifically, ultimately, for customer relationship management software. But they help them out through all sorts of marketing suggestions, marketing strategies, real-world context. Really, really great company. In this case, Shopify has identified specifically clients, excuse me, HubSpot has identified specifically merchants within that use Shopify that have $1 million in revenue and more. Fast growing brands, okay, but that lack this sophistication, okay, maybe because they expanded very, very quickly, but they've never thought about having a customer relationship management software, or the ones that they have is not very efficient. Okay, so this is not mass marketing, very specific. So one way we might do that is have these customized LinkedIn ads, okay, which are customized to that client, and a personalized email specifically to those one targets. And as you can see here, I've created an image which does exactly that. So these ads are not generic. They are specifically targeting these exact clients so that those clients can recognize each other. So very, very narrow kind of approach. Okay, so we are marketing here to accounts, okay, not to markets. So the second step is to expand to additional stakeholders. So keep in mind that in these companies, $1 million plus, there's not only one person deciding. So you have the chief financial officer all the way to the procurement officer, who all have different interests. Okay, so keep in mind, some of them don't have the power to say yes, but they definitely have the power to say no. Okay, so what you're looking to do here by emphasizing this knowledge or by using this knowledge is to build that support internally. Okay, so you have to be talking. So you want to expand within that company to these other stakeholders. The third is you're engaging with these stakeholders. So now we understand, and we've known this for a while because we've been speaking about it, then one message does not fit all. That since every one of these people occupy different roles, and since their key attributes or those attributes or characteristics, features that are the most important are different for each one of them. Okay, so we know that return on investment will be important for the people more concerned with finance, and whereas the people who are using it, they just want to make sure that it's reliable. Okay, for instance, the engineers might be more concerned about the fact that it's standardized so they can get easy place replacements. So because not everybody wants to hear the same thing, you can't be saying the same thing. So in this stage, at the engagement stage, you want to make sure that your marketing communication is adapted to everybody. Okay, so that it has a much more higher likelihood of being listened to. And then finally, if you've done a great job there, these very same people will become your advocates. Okay, they become your brand ambassadors basically within the organization and are promoting your brand within the organization. In essence, they become the people who your client is becoming your salesperson. They are now selling on your behalf. Okay, so this is why this inverted marketing communication funnel is so successful within this approach, the ABM approach, in which we really have to know about. So if we bring it all together at the end of this video and the end of this chapter, of course, you understand, of course, these key takeaways, which are incredibly important to gain high performance B2B marketing communication, which starts by understanding the customer journey and their digital journey, of course, all the way down to the omni-channel to understand between what should be said between content marketing, for instance, and branded content, ABM targeting, how do we create value for customers, how do we create that, and of course, understanding that there's multiple people making this decision so that the message is the right one for the right account or the right group of people at the right time and at the right channel. Okay, and it is all, of course, one seamless conversation where nobody is working in silos within our own organization to ensure that communication flows seamlessly for the client. And keep in mind, ultimately, if this all works well, communication is not about awareness only. It's got to drive those pipeline sales. And I believe that if you do all of this, it will accomplish exactly that objective. So I want to thank you all for listening, and I look forward to speaking to you soon again. Take care.